good setup. Feels like you could also get a dog all day. Who's fast on the level on our side? You only want to shake here. We're live?
Yeah.
So the joke's about what getting fast, taser roll, or something like that, grab a house. Got it. Yeah, so we have a couple of minutes, we'll get started here. A couple of minutes. You guys know what's starting on County? I guess I'm curious to see what's like up there. It's straight up.
On the wall.
Thomas like a house.
Yes, put it up yet.
What, so how do they get audio up there?
Yep. There you go, the TV's on out there. They're really now. But they can stop it accident, we saw how angel stop that plane with an accident, or it's on the docks. They're gonna stop it there. And then they don't have anybody.
Okay, so you might. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock here. We'll get started. So, big momentous night here tonight there. First time that we are all gathered in the same room in the last couple of months. So everybody's 6 feet apart here in this room. And so council chambers is still open to the public, depending on how many people that we have in here. And so we also have an area set up outside in the lobby where if you wanted to come to the town office, you could view everything from there. And, or the best part is you can do it from your own home. So for the next little while, we'll keep doing this and maybe learning and playing with technology. And hopefully tonight, everything works. I will say for those watching abroad, what we have noticed with our mics is they pick up everything. So if you're hearing a lot of clicking and clacking and things going on, that's, we apologize. We're still learning and figuring our way through this.
Can you turn the TV down out there? All I can hear is you on the TV out in the lobby.
Oh my God, I love it. No, we don't like- Okay, so we're learning our first bit of technology. There's actually nobody here watching, but all you can do is hear me talking out in another room. So we're gonna make some adjustments. Okay, so we got the agenda here in front of us. Any changes to the agenda? As I see none. Councillor Brandel,
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so we've got some delegations, we've got some public hearings. We'll start with public hearings. This is for bylaw 10/2020. And I need to switch my sheets and you'll probably hear this clear as day. So, okay. So I'll declare this public hearing open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606 and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 10/2020 is to amend land use bylaw 22/2007 by adding industrial equipment repair shop to section 104-3. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner or landowners, and adjoining landowners, as well as the planning and development officer. The notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from May 15th to June 2nd. Presentations are be brief and to the point. We'll start with planning and development, then those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed, and lastly, any person deemed to affected who wishes to be heard. With that, I will start with planning and development.
Okay, Your worship and members of council, as stated, the purpose of the report is to hold the required public hearing for bylaw number 10, 2020, which is to amend section 104 of the land use bylaw by adding industrial equipment repair shop. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at their meeting last night and have indicated that they support the bylaw. The planning department consulted with other municipalities with regards to this application. None of the municipalities researched allow for residence in conjunction with an industrial use, and only 5 allowed for the use of a security suite, which must be inside an industrial building on site. Planning department does have a few issues with the amendment being added to the M4, as most of the M4 lots are relatively small. The smaller lots would have difficulty accommodating turning movements of large trucks, which would be even more difficult if there were structures on site. Planning department also has concerns about having a residence on a property with a large number of big trucks coming and going. However, we recognize the uniqueness of our M4 small holdings industrial district. We are also aware that Mr. Price owns a lot that is exceptionally larger than most of the other M4 lots. And as such, we are recommending that if the use is to be added to the land use bylaw, that it be added as a discretionary use so that it can be considered by the Municipal Planning Commission. That's it.
Okay, questions for planning and development? Councillor Brandel.
A couple questions, Lori. So the address of this property is what? Because it's not on the report?
Yeah, but because it's a regulatory amendment, we often will not put the location. 'Cause
Okay,
it's-
but you've indicated that his lot is bigger, so I can't
Oh, sorry.
tell.
It is,
It was asked last night in MPC and it still wasn't really clear, so.
okay, so it's 317 if you look on that map on page 67 of the agenda. So it's on the south side, or
Okay,
you see which one we're
Yeah,
talking about?
got
It's
it
quite a
there,
bit
yeah.
larger, yeah.
So right below the M1.
right. Okay. And then the other question was, so last night when we did it in MPC, we set aside the residence and we just concentrated on the industrial addition.
Right,
So that was the recommendation. So we didn't concentrate on that. I just wanted that noted.
okay, sounds good.
Clarify that, what do you mean?
Well, Lori just said that she had a concern with the residents on site, and we set that aside in MPC
Okay, I see what you're saying.
and
Okay.
just concentrated on adding that,
Use
yeah, the
only.
use, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So other questions? I have one. So for procedure here, because we've got potentially later in our meeting here to do second and third reading for this. As a discretionary use, and discretionary is how it's already set up. So theoretically, we don't have to change anything
no,
because first reading had it as a discretionary.
that's correct.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that we continue with second and third reading, that it was end up as a discretionary use.
If you look at the bylaw, just for clarification on page 71, it says section 104.3 is amended by adding the following. The subsection 3 is the discretionary, the list of discretionary uses.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. At this point, I would ask anybody in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed that wants to come forward and speak? Anybody deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? As I see and hear no one except for myself in the other room, I will declare this public hearing closed. So with that, we'll jump into delegations. Tonight, we are looking at the multi-year financial plan. Our Staff Sergeant, Mr. John Spans, is here. If you want to come forward there. I guess we could have swapped chairs too. Something to think of for next time. Okay,
I'm okay with
don't
it.
touch anything or lick your fingers.
Sure.
Okay. So moving right along, Mr. Spans, I'll let you go through this report and we'll get some questions for you.
Most certainly. Okay, so the multi-year financial plan, the RCMP needs to deliver to the town annually, and we project Not guaranteed costs, but possible costs for the next 5 years. Do each of you have a copy?
We got a copy.
Okay, good. I corrected some errors, spelling errors, so I'll resend it out, but
Okay, so I can take these highlights out. Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
We're not located in Southern Alberta, so
Okay.
that's one. So the multi-year financial plan, briefly, it goes over our, I guess, how our town is set up with industry and basically what makes Slave Lake run. In here, I won't go into the detail, but in here we talk about a shadow population and what drives crime and that sort of thing, what drives our economy, what resources we have, and how that also drives people coming into our community, which then in turn affects policing. So in the overview, these are updated as of 2018, 2019 stats. So we have realized a 13% decrease in total criminal code offenses, and that was in year 18-19. Persons crimes had a 24% decrease, and then property crime was 11%, other criminal code 9% decrease. So we use those stats to kind of project what we need for members. We need to start talking about criminal code files per member and whatnot. It's awkward having people behind you trying to talk over your shoulder back this way. So yeah, so I'll get into, I got to find the right page here. So right now, got to find the right one. Our criminal code per member is still a little higher than what we are, the average across the province. I should have bookmarked it, but my new copy doesn't have the bookmarks, but we're about 126 criminal code per member, municipal member. These stats don't count our rural members. 126 criminal code files per member per year. Where the provincial average for detachments our size, similar contracts, are 86 criminal code files per member per year. So we are above average on the criminal code per member. That being said, we've got more members basically per capita than other communities our size. So the town of Slave Lake's paying for more members than other communities are with our size, yet we're still seeing above average file loads for our members. So with that, and like I said, these aren't guaranteed numbers, just anticipated increases to resources. I could see a need for one additional member in 22-23 at a cost of $170,000 for that member. And that's really just to offset the increased population, more complex police work, and that sort of thing. For a little context, I did put the same thing in last year as needing a member this year. And it's as simple as me sending an email saying, are we going to call up that member? No. And then I just send that to our OSB people. I believe that was maybe 4 or 5 months ago I sent that email out. So it's just if the town agrees and would like a new RCMP member in the year 2022-23, now would be the time to start planning, because when they do ask, are you going to still require that member? And you say yes, the funding's there, then they start that process in that year.
To clarify, it's automatic if we say we want another officer and you've deemed it in your thing that we'd automatically get funding for it or not?
No, this would be if the town said, we have $170,000, we'd love to we want one more member from the RCMP. You would tell me, I would tell our OSB and say, they do want one here. And then we start the process for getting a cadet or however.
But it's cost shared. We pay 70%.
Yes.
They pay 30. So do they automatically pay the 30 or?
I'll have to ask. Yeah, because that other half or that other 30 would come from the province. Yeah, unless the town went so like 100. There is the 100%.
Oh, I'm sure we have
Which
the
is-
option to pay 100%.
Yeah,
yes.
which is
Okay.
that's an enhanced policing member, which is you could do it. I mean,
Okay.
but you don't have to. Yeah. As well, I put in here for the year 2021-22. So this next fiscal year. A new addition, an additional municipal employee, like we had that during budget times, the need for another clerk to take some of the administrative workload off the members. We discussed piloting how we could do with the existing 3, and it was going well till COVID. Now everything stopped. So we can't really get a good grasp on if the new system is working in the long term. But be aware, I might be asking again in 2021, 22, with results on what we did with our current 3. Any questions on the
I have a quick question.
Sure.
As we go up regular members, do we need to go up management or supervisory members as well?
Yeah, we do. So not just yet, though. If the town of Slave Lake gets, I believe it's 2 more constables, there will be a requirement for a 3rd or a new corporal. So we're at this kind of balancing point where if the town wanted 2 more members, you're going to get pushed into needing 3. So that'll be, say this member does exist in year 2022, 23. There'll have to be very close discussions because that next member is basically going to be the cost of 2.
Okay,
Because there's going to be we're getting close to that threshold. Yeah.
sorry, Councilor Crane.
So that's it for manpower. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Busk.
That was also the criteria for having full 24-hour policing was the 3 members, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. To do a full 24-hour policing model in this town, with the way we're set up, we would need 2 more constables at the minimum, and you'd still be looking barely scraping by with 24. We would need more than 2 to make it a really solid 24-hour. And the reason I say we'd barely scraping by is all it would take is 1 person to go off sick, 1 person to get transferred, and leave vacancies. But if we're working full capacity with every member on the floor, with 2 more members, we would have a 24-hour policing rotation, not a problem.
Because realistically, it's rare that we're at 100% for any prolonged period.
Exactly. If we're at 100%, it's for a period of a month. And then
Okay.
people move on and requirement for training and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor King.
And one more question. Do the municipal members work strictly, the MD members work strictly in the MD, the rural, or they're in town also?
No, the rural members, the provincial members, we call them, they're in town mostly. Now, I do suspect we're going to start getting some pressure from the municipality, given their policing costs have now gone up with the current provincial government has downloaded more costs to municipalities, including policing. I don't know what those numbers look like for Lesser Slave River yet, but I could see them expecting to see those provincial members rural more because they're paying more. So,
But to be clear, when we call them MD, so there's 85% of the policing is paid for by the town of Slave Lake. And then we have 2 additional officers that are paid for by the province that are rural officers. However, the entire detachment responds to calls both inside the town limits as well as the MD. So it shouldn't be confused with the MD members spend all their time in town.
that's correct. The MD members, they're not just MD, like they police the town. That's a part of the provincial responsibility. That's part of the province's contribution to Slave Lake is that.
And the town members police the MD.
And the town members police the MD. Now, there are some jurisdictions that say they don't want that. They're a town, they stay in town, but we've got a good relationship and it works.
Perfect.
The majority of time they're in town. So,
Okay.
Good blog topic.
Okay. I'll let you keep going.
sure. So the next part where there's some costs, these aren't guarantees, but it's equipment. And with the provincial policing service agreement and then the contract with the town, a lot of these costs are included in the town, what the town pays the RCMP. So naloxone, that's the drug we use to offset fentanyl opioid overdoses. They expire every 2 years and they're $100 a unit. So every 2 years, we're re-upping our supply of naloxone at a cost of $1,287 per unit or per box anyway. So that's a cost for just our municipal members may get downloaded to the municipality. Some of these costs are absorbed by the province as well because of the fight against opioids and that thing. So these are they may be downloaded to the municipality or to the town. Conducted energy weapons are going to be a very expensive purchase for us this year. We have it on 2 lines here, and I think that's an error, but I'll explain. Our CWs, our tasers, that we currently have are no longer supported by Taser International, which is now known as Axiom or Axum. So Taser no longer supports our current tasers. You can't get batteries for them. You can't get cartridges for them. So we stocked up as much as we could this past year, and we're down to our last battery. So once that battery's done, we have no tasers. With our detachment, I've put an order in for the new tasers, which are supported. They're back ordered because everyone across Canada needs them. But they're at a cost of, I believe, $1,450 each. We have 4 of them locally. 3 of them are paid for by the town. The 4th one is paid for by the province, essentially. Again, this may get downloaded to the town, but we're not sure if, because this was kind of a province, a Canada-wide issue, I'm not sure if the province is going to pick up the bill on these ones. Wi-Fi installation. So this is a part of modernizing our service. Wi-Fi installation, $11,400. I didn't think that's how much it was for industrial Wi-Fi, but here we are. What the goal of that Wi-Fi installation is for is basically for when we go to body worn cameras, the in-car cameras, we show up at the dash and they automatically download. So it takes it out of the hands of the members and support staff. It's downloading right into the server, right when you walk in the office, every time you come and go. Additionally, it removes the need to have hardwired computers everywhere. We could have our major crimes people or whoever show up at our office sit down anywhere and have their laptop and hook up to our secure Wi-Fi. But that's, it's an expense, and then there's ongoing $3,300 annually to maintain that. I don't know when that's going to happen. And again, I'm not sure if that's a guaranteed cost for the town. But I can say they've already started laying the groundwork. They've started running various cables and stuff in our office to make that happen. So I do see that happening this year. Line speed upgrades, that goes hand in hand with the Wi-Fi. We need more bandwidth to download video and that sort of thing. So that's going to be upgraded as well.
And that's $85,000.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I'm in the wrong business if that's the case, but.
Okay,
Right.
Councillor Busk.
So is that more to do with having to talk with prosecutors in Edmonton when you bring a prisoner in for their appearance and stuff like that?
Yeah, and maybe that is, I don't know. I'm not sure if in these line speed upgrades and Wi-Fi installation, if it's going to include, like, say, video conferencing capabilities and that sort of thing. I would hope so with that kind of a cost. What we're seeing, at least with line speed and whatnot, is our need to disclose all this video, audio, photographs. Everything has to get downloaded. No longer are we printing and sending stuff on email, or sorry, sending stuff in regular mail. Stuff's getting sent through servers and it takes forever. So they're upgrading our line speed so we're at least able to share disclosure with the courts and that kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so increasing bandwidth to get digital stuff faster.
Yeah, we're digitizing very fast. And for a slow moving organization, it's a bit painful, but.
Okay,
Our CCVE server camera upgrades, those are going to be our, those are coming. And I believe that'll be a shared cost because we do have provincial members as well. But we're getting new interview equipment at a cost of about $10,000. But then I know that's $10,000 next year, this year. So I'm not sure who else is covering that, because the whole project, as far as I know, is more than $10,000. That's new interview equipment and upgraded cameras in our cell block, because the cameras are terrible. They're pixelated. You can't really see anything there. And I think that's because they're worn out. Android devices, I note later on in the report, the Android devices, every one of our members has been given a Samsung phone now that's secure and all that kind of business. And the Government of Canada is footing that bill. So that's not a cost to the municipality. It's in here in case somebody changes their mind. But right now it falls under Shared Services Canada. And that's their cost.
okay,
And ATAK, ATAK, is basically GPS and emergency response for members that go on that phone, but it's a subscription service. And again, that's a bill footed by Shared Service Canada that just in case they decide to change their minds, could come to the town, but right now it's covered. And then again, the CEWs, the conducted energy weapons, they're on a bottom line there. I don't know why it was on there twice.
All good.
Yeah. Other various, kind of at the end there, we don't have costs for some of these, but there are studies right now for ballistic shields. We don't currently have those. Breaching equipment, we do have breaching equipment. We bought ourselves, but there might be a mandatory purchase for all detachments that would get downloaded to the municipal budget. Hard body armor, there's currently studies in place to outfit our members with more personalized body armor that are lighter, better. And again, we're not sure how that cost would get downloaded, but it's being considered. Pistol modernization, our weapons are constantly getting evaluated, and we keep hearing there's going to be new firearms. And again, that's going to be a cost to our contract partners down the road, and that goes across the board. But we're several years away from that. So, and that's our multi-year financial plan in a nutshell. So again, any of these True. Flashlights. Yeah, so.
Okay, so we've got some anticipated costs for 2021 that we were known about ahead of time, so are built into our budget. The biggest one is that $85,000 hit that's on the Wi-Fi and line upgrades. And I'm sitting here looking across the room at our director of finance, and he's unsure, so we're gonna have to go back and calculate that stuff. Okay, so we'll process. Because we just get total summary sheets that say this is the cost, here's our quarterly statement, we sign a big fat check and away we go.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, appreciate the insight for sure. Obviously, the big discussion will be around additional personnel as we move forward. We were excited that you were trying some new things with admin. So one of the questions was, how is that working? Obviously with the COVID, you're saying it's tough to evaluate at this point.
Yeah, so with the admin, it was going very well. Having one of our admin staff work a later shift because it was helping our frontline members with core packages, queries, all that kind of business. All the it was working great. Then COVID hit and we can't really get a true assessment, but I think when things start going back to normal, I think we're gonna see that benefit again. I had discussions with our district today, and there's Slave Lake's gonna be a pilot study for a kind of a tweaked bail hearing process, because right now the whole bail hearing thing is still getting changed after the fatality inquiry after the David Wynn was shot down in St. Albert. And there's various problems with the new bail hearing system. So now they're coming out with a revamped system, and we're going to be a pilot for that. But what I see in that pilot is there's going to be a lot of pressure on police to arrest somebody, take them before a justice of the peace for bail hearing as soon as humanly possible, so as not to infringe on the prisoner's rights by keeping them in custody for too long. In order to do that, we're going to have to basically, if I'm the member that brings him in, I'm going to be with that prisoner doing his paperwork, all that kind of stuff until he's seen through the bail hearing process. Where in the past, I could bring him in, put him in cells, go back out on the street, deal with a couple of things, go to this call, kind of help out. But now we're going to be removing that member off the street solely to deal with this prisoner. The additional admin staff that we have at night is going to take a huge bunch of, basically put 75% of the burden off the member, where that admin staff will now do the queries, the court documents, basically everything aside from the narrative of the arrest will fall to the admin. If this is the common practice, we might benefit from a fourth admin, but we're not going to know that for several months, probably not even next fiscal year as things evolve. But
And so that's the extra admin person that you budgeted for going on. Okay.
Yeah, anticipated. I just see us not taking a step back administratively. I see more and more administrative burden on the members that are imposed by the courts and inquiries and all this. And those administrative burdens can be absorbed.
So when you guys start this pilot?
June 15th.
June 15th. Okay. So we're doing budget in the fall. So realistically, we'd have 3 or 4 months of kind of a feel of how things are going.
And we may have a very good idea by then as well. There's 4 detachments doing the doing the pilot. We're about the third biggest. There's also Stettler Olds and I believe Grand Prairie is the other one. So we should have a pretty good idea of the burden that's gonna be placed on the members to get this stuff done, so.
Okay. So is that going to be advantageous to us? Are we still going then through a person in Edmonton that represents us for our bail hearings?
Yeah, we are. That process isn't changing. So
You guys just have to do more work faster.
we have to do more work faster and
Sounds like a crappy pilot.
yeah, so far. And that's why I'm hoping to tweak it a little bit where it'll work for the RCMP for the police side of things. They're putting a lot of burden and a lot of the onus is on us to logistically get this prisoner before the courts. Which means basically we have a member at the office with them facilitating the phone calls and all that, plus getting the paperwork in. But we'll see how it plays out. I just got notified of it yesterday, so.
Which is interesting because from the municipal purview, we've been pushing back a lot to keep these people locked up so they don't go back out again and reoccur doing the same crimes. And now we're making it faster. So it would be interesting to give some more feedback higher up the RCMP
Yeah.
that,
Most definitely, frankly, it stems from an Alberta Court of Appeal decision where somebody was held in custody. We have 24 hours to deal with somebody in custody, basically, where the courts can remand them or release them. This individual in Edmonton was held for 36 hours for a serious crime, and that was deemed a violation of their charter rights, and the courts withdrew the charge outright. It's now back before the courts. The Court of Appeal overturned it, but also made note that 24 hours is the outside limit and we need to aim for 18 hours, which is part of our pilot. We need to get somebody dealt with within 18 hours, beginning to end. So, which poses problems when you have complex investigations, like say a homicide. So where we're sitting at a house for 3 days.
it's just interesting and frustrating because we met with K Division in Edmonton and told them that we were open to trying anything to help with crime and use this as a pilot. This isn't exactly what we were looking for.
No, not this way. No.
Okay, maybe a follow-up conversation with Curtis would be prudent. Okay. Okay, any other questions? So we'll be considering these positions obviously at budget and see how that works. Look forward to some feedback on whether or not they're automatically funded or not. And I think we'll follow up with our friends in K Division there about frustration with what we're getting chose to try out. Any other comments, discussions? I see nothing. Staff Sergeant Spans, thank you very much for coming.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be back amongst people, not in a grocery store line.
It's exciting for us too.
So,
Okay, so moving on in our agenda. We'll jump into minutes of our previous meeting held on page 13 in our package from May 18th, May 19th, sorry. Any issues with the minutes? Councillor Ferguson?
My name is listed twice and I was not present for the meeting. I'm currently listed as present.
That's funny because you put it on your timesheet.
Nice one.
Sorry, is this being recorded? Thanks for the correction. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Motion to keep going. Accept the minutes as amended.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brandel. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, CEO update, Mr. Gordon Lundy.
Your worship, I don't have anything further than what the directors have provided you as info this week.
Okay, questions, comments? Councillor Ferguson.
Just a note here. So a couple weeks ago, I had to replace my water line to my house. And I just wanted to commend the crew, Cody and his team and Cal and his team. They were an absolute pleasure to deal with. They helped a lot, made it very seamless. So they have my thanks there. And then the other note is just about Devonshire Beach. You had mentioned that you've been in contact with Alberta Parks. Do you know when they will be here to make that presentation just regarding the cleanup?
The fellow's name that has contacted us is Calvin McLeod.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't firmed up a date this month, but I hope that happens shortly and I can quiz him again as to firming up that date.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I see that we're opening Visitor Information Center at the end of the month.
Yes, that's correct, what we're hoping to do.
Okay, exciting to see that. Councillor King.
I might have missed it, but is communication going out about Summer Splash not happening, or has it gone out?
No, it hasn't gone out, but following this meeting, Gary can make sure that that happens.
I've had some questions about it and I noticed it was in the notes. So unfortunately that's,
Yeah, so there are a lot of restrictions, obviously, for those that are watching, there's a bunch of restrictions built around what we can and can't do for summer programming, especially specific to day camps and just the cost that we would have to do to recover some of that stuff. And the actual amount of kids that we could actually even reach made it an impractical thing for this year. Other questions, comments, Councillor Busk?
With the announcement that stage 2 is going to be starting here shortly. When I was looking through the list, they said that the libraries will be opening with modified services and stuff like that on that list. I'm wondering if we have any news of our library, if it's going to be opening with the stage 2 or what the status is.
Councillor McGregor, who represents Town of Slave Lake on the library, says they've got a meeting tomorrow, so look forward to hearing back on that. I'll just add a couple residents out in Glory Line reached out to me yesterday. We're pleasantly surprised with the level of service. Operations crew is out there doing some spot repair stuff on some of our soft areas and specifically in front of some people's driveways. And so thought that was a really nice touch and really appreciated that town was out there. We've basically highlighted that as our number one priority, fix the roads out there. And we did delay it this year based on the things going on with COVID. Two things I wanted to mention with that. If you wonder why we're doing this, I would encourage you to go out into the cul-de-sac on Ross and Rice and take a look there because they actually try to do some repair out there. And it is better, but I got to tell you, it is sad to say the least. And I feel for those residents that are right around the corner. Additionally, I did reach out to our MLA's office. Part of the reason that we have delayed those things is we were worried about capacity, but there is some indications from the province early on during this COVID issue that there was potentially stimulus money coming to help with capital projects. And I think this project would be a perfect example for something like that. So I did ask the MLA's office to reach out to Municipal Affairs and see if there's anything that they're hearing in regards to that, because it could be something that we could maybe pull off the shelf and use right away if there was stimulus funding coming. But we're kind of getting into a point where we'd either have to make that decision here very soon to actually get it done, or basically let it go. So they were going to do that, and we'll see where that falls at the end of the day. But definitely still needed, because there are some nightmare spots out there. But thanks for the town for helping try and minimize that and keep it manageable until we're able to fix it. I had nothing else. Questions, comments? I see nothing. We'll move into the rest of our reports. Well, the start of our reports. It's on our 125-page agenda plus 3 additional ones sitting over here. We're on page 22. And so we've got the FIR, the Financial Information Return for 2019. This is largely in follow-up to our documents from our audited statements. This is the information that gets passed on to the province and gets filed for all the public to see. Roland, you got anything else to add?
No, just note, and we normally do this with the audited statements. We're just behind a little bit on that, on this part of it, and so it's done, and we'll be filing this tomorrow with your approval.
Sounds good. Any questions? If not, Councillor King.
I'll make a motion that council approves a financial information return for the year ending December 31st, 2019 as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Planning and development service reviews, Lori Skrinick.
Hang on 1 second, I have to grab the agenda. Since we're sharing. All right. Hey, your worship and members of council, the purpose of this report is for council to consider statistics regarding the processing time for various functions within the department in comparison to current service levels. So in July of 2019, administration presented a report to council with respect to the department's staffing and service levels. Council agreed at that meeting that staffing levels in the department would decrease from 3 FTEs to 2, and that some service levels would also decrease in accordance with that. Council also requested administration come back with an update in early 2020 outlining the impacts, if any, to services provided as a result of the service level decreases. So the following are those areas within the planning department where service levels were reduced in consideration of staffing levels. So the biggest one is development permits. The new service level for development permits is issuance of a permit within 21 days for applications considered by the development officer and up to 28 days for applications considered by the MPC. The clock starts upon receipt of a complete application. So for 2019, we started recording the trends in August. Attached to this report is a spreadsheet of the development permits issued from August 18th to December 31st, 2019. A total of 35 permits were issued, and of that, 19 were approved by the development officer, 13 by the MPC, and 3 by the SDAB. On average, it took 3.2 days for permits approved by the development officer, 13.5 days for permits approved by MPC, and 32.6 days for permits approved by the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. For 2020, from January 1st to May 25th, a total of 21 permits were issued, and of that, 14 were approved by the development officer, 6 by the MPC, none by the Subdivision Development Appeal Board, and 1 by council. On average, it took 5 days for permits approved by the development officer and 20.4 days for permits approved by the MPC. All of the dates of approval were within the new service level, and the averages were well under. In fact, permits approved by the DO or development officer are well under the 14-day service level. That said, when volumes increase, the average processing time will likely increase to an average much closer to the current service level. So, for special event and food truck permits, they're required to be issued within 21 days of receipt of a complete application. For 2019, 5 special event permits were approved by the development officer within that time frame, August 13th to December 31st. The average time to process the application was 5.2 days, which is well under the current service level. And no food truck permits have been issued since the adoption of the policy. And for 2020, neither special event or food truck permits have been issued due to the COVID-19 restrictions around gatherings. For certificates of compliance, was the only other area where service levels were decreased. And we've not been tracking the processing time for the date from the date of receipt. However, they have to be completed within 4 business days, which is a service level, and we meet that service level for all of them. So the planning department is aware that some members of council were concerned back in August of last year that there would be a dramatic increase in the amount of time a development permit application sat in the queue before it was processed. It is demonstrated through the stats provided that the reduced service level has had no impact on processing time. Essentially, no permit sits in a queue waiting for the time to run out before they are processed. And for clarification, that's never been our process. Once an application, a complete application is received, processing occurs as quickly as possible in consideration of current workload. Again, this could change with an increase in the number of permits being applied for. However, we feel we'll be able to meet the current service level. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? I'll just start with the fact that appreciate you bringing this information, Lori, and contrary to popular belief, out in the public. We do constantly evaluate staffing levels and positions. And last year, in order to reduce budget and be cognizant of that, we did reduce planning and development by one position that was vacant. We chose not to refill it. And I know that our planning department had to basically suck it up and make it work. And obviously this demonstrates that you guys are getting that stuff done. You know, we're obviously concerned about the levels of the timelines for the public, but just want to say thanks to administration for making this work and making sure that customer services continues to be one of our guiding principles there for sure. Any other questions, comments? Okay, motion to accept as information, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
It's not written in here, but that's what we like.
Right, yeah. It should be.
Councillor Busk makes a motion to accept this as information. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So leading right along, we're into page 43 in our package, offsite levy and legal bunkhouse options.
Okay, the purpose of this report is to consider a request to allow development to occur, i.e. a bunkhouse in consideration of an offsite levy deferral agreement. The applicant is Murray Broadhead, and the subject lands are Plan 0823419, Block 1, Lot 4. So quickly, I'll just go over the history. In April of 2015, council passed a resolution regarding an offsite levy deferral agreement with Mr. Broadhead for a storage yard. Council agreed that if Mr. Broadhead entered into the agreement with the town and provided the required security, that he could then apply for a storage yard on the subject lands. May 5th of 2017, he entered into the agreement. The agreement states a number of things here and has some trigger points with respect to when the offsite levies would be due. Essentially, upon the sale of the lands to a third party, if he applies for a development or a subdivision, or by February 28th, 2022, and that's the drop dead date. To secure the terms of the agreement, Mr. Broadhead was also required to provide an irrevocable letter of credit and registered the agreement on the title of the lands. On April 20th of 2017, development permit was issued for the storage yard. So in early May 2020, the planning department received a complaint regarding a bunkhouse and recreation vehicle on the subject site. Site inspection was conducted, which revealed an illegal bunkhouse and a fifth wheel, both of which appeared to be occupied. Further, there was a temporary structure, a roof placed on top of two tractor trailers, and one of the trailers was beginning to lean, presenting a potential collapse issue. None of these structures had been applied for or issued a development permit and are considered illegal. On May 14th, after a site visit and based on numerous infractions and discussions with the landowner regarding those infractions over the past few years, a stop order was issued. On May 21st, Mr. Broadhead contacted me to discuss the stop order. He revealed that the roof over the tractor trailer's structure was being utilized for sandblasting. He also advised that there was a mechanic living in one of his industrial shops and another individual living in the fifth wheel on the subject lands. Both of those individuals were providing on-site security, as Mr. Broadhead is experiencing a rash of thefts. The theft problem is becoming increasingly difficult to deal with, and the value of property taken is becoming extensive. He, like many other landowners and business owners, is exhausting all avenues to deal with the problem. During our discussion, he was advised that an RV cannot be occupied on an industrial lot at any time, and that he must either apply for a bunkhouse or a security suite. However, an application of any kind of development as per the offsite levy deferral agreement would trigger the requirement for him to pay the offsite levies. Mr. Broadhead is requesting council allow him to apply for a bunkhouse for the provision of on-site security, and that the development permit application for the bunkhouse not trigger the required offsite levies. So there's a couple of options. You could approve that and allow Mr. Broadhead the ability to apply for a bunkhouse permit without triggering the offsite levies, or could refuse the application for the bunkhouse or any other form of development without triggering the requirement to pay levies. The planning department recognizes that the theft issue Mr. Broadhead is attempting to address is a difficult one, and that on-site security would likely reduce theft. Further, the town has a fully executed and registered off-site levy deferral agreement and the required security. The terms of the agreement are such that if he develops, subdivides, or sells the property, it will trigger the payment of levies. And finally, the agreement also contains a drop dead date of February 28, 2022, which requires Mr. Broadhead to pay the levies in full by that date if no other triggering event occurs. As such, the planning department feels that there's very little risk to allowing the application for a bunkhouse to proceed without the required off-site levies. That said, council needs to impress upon Mr. Broadhead that the ongoing infractions and follow-up enforcement needs to stop if council is going to consider this request. Essentially, he understands that any development of any kind triggers the requirement to pay off-site levies, and quite frankly, the planning department should not be expending any time on a go-forward basis dealing with enforcement of illegal developments on these lands.
Okay, questions, comments? Councillor Busk.
So earlier in your report, you said that one of the, originally this plot of land was used for storage, if I understand that correctly, and that one of the uses on there had been sandblasting. So that's a permitted use under what?
It's not. So basically, he was issued a development permit for a storage yard, and the storage yard definition allows him to only do that. So any other uses that have been occurring on the land, and there are numerous, the bunkhouse, living in the RV, the sandblasting, any operation of any form of business outside of storage is not permitted on that site.
Okay. So my only thing is with this drop dead date of February 28, 2022, I have no problem with him having this bunkhouse facility, and we have 2 years to get to that date, less than 2 years to get to that date. So yeah, no, I have no problems with that.
Okay, other questions, comments from council? Councillor McGregor.
So, I don't know. I got issues with this. So we're getting, I mean, whatever, we're gonna do whatever. But realistically, Murray needs to then quit doing 27 other little things is what you're basically telling us, Lori. Recommendation to council is start listening and quit doing what you're doing, or we'll just say no and you'll pay that $285,000 tomorrow.
Well, yeah,
Well, that's where I'm at. I don't know if that's where you are, but that's kind of where I'm at. So you get a little extension, you take an inch, and then you get another inch. Pretty soon you're at a foot. Pretty soon you're at 6 feet, and now we're coming to this. So I'm tired of babysitting people like this in our community that think they can just do whatever the heck they want when they want. We have a few over there in that area. So how about then let's make sure that this is clear and we don't see another one of these. I'll be okay to vote for him to do this, but if I see another one again, no, it'll be a slam dunk no for me, and you'll just pay this levy the next day.
Okay, that's clear. Councillor Randall.
I'm kind of on the same route. So question, does this allow him just to have security people, or is this like a complete bunkhouse that he can have 30, 50, 75 people there?
Right now, the bunkhouses, the way they're listed in the land use bylaw, he could have, if it was a bunkhouse that could accommodate 10 people, he could, once he got approval and hooked it up properly, he could have 10 people, 10 of his employees living in it.
Okay. And does he have proper water and sewer hooked up?
It is hooked up, but not properly. So it would have to go, basically, if you agree to this, then he could apply. Then he's going to have to go through the whole hookup process and the inspection. It needs to be inspected by various authorities, and then
So to be clear,
legal.
there's a whole process that still has to happen where he
That's
gets the
correct.
bunkhouse legally done.
Yep.
Goes through all the checklists, whatever. All we're doing is basically saying we'll
Saying-
stick to the original agreement of,
and not require him to pay the offsite levies right now.
Okay, so that's where I struggle because I've been, since 2013, when I got on council, we've seen him come to this table several times and we go through all of these motions and change his, make these agreements to accommodate him. And then 6 months or 18 months later, he wants to do another use on there. And then we find out that it's illegal. And then we find out that, you know, he wants to change the, so it seems like your department has spent a lot of time on this individual and a lot of agreements and legal and your time
And looking
effort,
for
so-
options, probably, I think 7 or 8 reports to council where we explored many, many different options on, you know, finally getting to the storage yard, allowing him to do that because.
Trying to accommodate.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. We don't want to be the council that says no all the time, but
We do have boundaries, hey?
Yeah.
Councillor Grandma.
So is one of his businesses using that to sandblast? Oh, sorry, Mike. Are one of his businesses using that to sandblast, or is that someone sandblasting in his yard that not one of his 3 businesses that are in those buildings?
I don't know. I just know he was well aware of it and they set the structure up to do that. So I don't know who's doing it, but he knows about it and that's what they put that roof on the trailers for.
Okay,
and
that was just
hung
curious.
poly
I
on
would
it.
think one of those shop bays would be a little easier to sandblast in than a
Well,
makeshift
yeah,
roof over.
and then we got a complaint about, that was late last summer that was happening, and I became aware because somebody phoned me with a complaint about sandblasting and was like, well, where's that coming from? And that's where, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Brandel.
so where does the sandblasting come in on this? Because the motion is just for the bunkhouse, right? So is that
The
coming as
the
another
motion, so
report, or-
he's been issued a stop order and he has to stop use of the RV immediate. And that structure has to be taken down. And then if council defers or allows the application to go forward, he has to apply for the bunkhouse and go through that whole process. But the other structures have to come down and their use has to discontinue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can he apply for an amendment to put sandblasting in? No?
Well, he would, if he wanted to do that, he'd have to build an industrial building for it. And that would trigger the development permit for the offsite levies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor King.
If we approve this, who approves the bunkhouse? The MPC?
Yes.
Okay. As I see nobody else weighing in here, I'll just say that, you know, our objective obviously is always to work with business, you know, we're on this big push for economic development. And we want to see businesses grow, support them and do the best that we can to see them be successful and provide employment to our community and all those great things. That being said, we also have to protect the interests of the neighborhood. We have to protect the interests of other businesses who do business here. And so that's why we have to have some kind of rules and structure. So I have no issue with the motion there to basically allow him to put in the bunkhouse, but maybe it's time that the letter that he gets with that comes from council's office that has some more strongly worded lines in there that basically say, hey, listen, we're trying to work with business, but we have a limit and you've reached it.
Okay. I can draft something.
And we'll work on that together.
Sure.
Okay, Councillor King.
I'll make a motion that council allows Mary Broadhead of 1189220 Alberta Limited to apply for a relocatable industrial camp facility bunkhouse on Plan 0823419, Block 1, Lot 4, without triggering the requirement to pay the required offsite levy in the amount of $285,363, and that this decision will have no impact on the terms and conditions of the offsite levy deferral agreement dated May 5th, 2017, between 1189220 Alberta Limited and the town of Slave Lake.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, bylaw 10/2020 was the one that we discussed earlier in our public hearing in regards to the industrial use of industrial equipment repair shop. in M4 district. Lori, do you have anything new to add?
I just wanted to say that I really don't have any big issues with this. With it going in as a discretionary use, the Municipal Planning Commission has the ability then to consider an application on a site-by-site basis, which I think is all we really need. So I'm not concerned.
I agree. Councillor Busk.
I'll make a motion that bylaw 10/2020 to amend section 104 of the land use bylaw 22/2007 by adding industrial equipment repair shop as a discretionary use receives second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Councillor Ferguson.
That bylaw number 10/2020 to amend section 104 of the land use bylaw number 22/2007 by adding industrial equipment repair shop as a discretionary use receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, page 72 in our package. Lori, again, for waiving of fees.
Okay, the purpose of this report is for council to render a decision with regards to a request from Complete Waste Solutions, Inc. to waive the development permit fee for their relocatable industrial camp facility or bunkhouse. So the development permit fee in question is $1,000. So just historically, the town has waived development permit fees. However, it was mainly for residential uses during the recovery period after the May 2011 wildfire event. So the applicant has addressed a letter to the town requesting the council consider waiving the required development permit fee for a bunkhouse. At the May 19th, 2020 meeting, council asked administration for a report detailing the history of the request. So on March 26th, the planning department received a complaint that a bunkhouse had been moved onto the Complete Waste Solutions site and was occupied at 200A Caribou Trail Southwest. The complainant stated that there was approximately 22 people staying in the bunkhouse, judging by the number of trucks he observed on site. On March 31st, the planning department contacted the landowner, requested that he speak with his renters about the bunkhouse on the site and the need for a permit. Mr. Peters, who is the landowner, was surprised to hear that his renters did not have a permit and said that he would talk to them shortly. On April 2nd, Complete Waste contacted the planning department to find out what would be needed to apply for the bunkhouse. The development officer talked to Mr. Gerard through the process and Miss Gerard, and verified to her the email address to send in the application. On April 3rd, a development permit application package, including the required fees, was emailed to the applicant. On April 9th, the planning department reached out by email to Complete Waste as no application or inquiries had been received. A deadline of April 17th was given to submit a completed application. On April 24th, another email was sent with a read receipt. No acknowledgement of the email was ever received. Development officer made the difficult choice to issue an ultimatum and either have a complete application to the town by 4:30 April 29th or a stop order would be issued. On April 27th, Mr. D. Champlain called the planning department to say he could not afford the permit fee and to ask if he only has one security person staying in the bunkhouse, does he really need to apply for a permit? He was advised that anyone staying in the bunkhouse at all would constitute the requirement for a permit. And he was also talked to about the option to ask council to waive and reduce fees. On April 20th, the planning department received a short email stating that the application was with the landowner for signature and would soon be sent into the town office. By May 5th, the planning department still had not received an application, so we reached out again requesting the application be submitted. By end of day May 6th, or a stop order would be issued. On the afternoon of May 6th, Complete Waste submitted an incomplete application. Development permit file was opened on May 7th and an incomplete letter was sent to Complete Waste Solutions detailing the required information and a deadline of May 22nd. As no additional information received by the department, a refusal letter was sent on May 25th, detailing that should Complete Waste wish to still go ahead with the bunkhouse, that they would need to reapply and submit a whole new application. The planning department has struggled to make headway with this applicant and only the bare minimum has ever been completed. There is an attitude of just do it and ask for forgiveness later if caught, and we cannot continue to allow this to pervade. These are living quarters for people who work in the company and who may have no option or ability to live elsewhere. These premises have not been inspected by the health inspector, the fire chief, a building codes officer to verify it's if it's safe for occupancy. The planning department is concerned that there appears to be a disregard for the well-being of others. We recognize that many companies are having difficult financial times. With that said, a company that can afford to purchase a bunkhouse should be able to afford the application fee for said bunkhouse and to ensure that the facility has been suitably established to ensure a safe environment for its employees. It is a recommendation of the planning department that council not set a precedent of waiving the fees for this type of use and require Complete Waste Solutions Inc. to pay the fee in full.
First off, I don't even understand why this should be here. We don't have a application, a correct application for even the bunkhouse. So to waive anything would be understated in my opinion. I don't think that this is even followed close to the proper procedures. And I am not in favor of waiving the $1,000.
Councillor King.
I'm along the similar lines. I find it very frustrating that this business wants us to do them a favor, but is having a hard time even working with our staff. I think a lot of admin time has already been spent on this, thus the reason for collecting the fees. Another thing I'm kind of noticing is the trend of bunkhouses being used for security. Maybe that's something we should be keeping an eye on.
Okay, other questions, comments from council? Councillor Ferguson?
I'll just state, like my counterparts here, I'm not supportive of it. I think there, we realize that there's a very real cost to the town, and these fees are meant to recoup some of the costs from various meetings and administration puts into it. So I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Busk?
As we always make the motions in the affirmative, I'll make this: council waives the required development permit fees of $1,000 for relocatable industrial camp facility bunkhouse for Complete Waste Solutions, Inc.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is defeated. Okay, so knowing that, so we still don't have a complete application. Are they still using it as a bunkhouse?
Yep. So what happens now is we will notify them of council's decision with respect to the fees and advise them that if they're going to continue to leave the bunkhouse there, then they have to get us a complete application right away, complete with fees. And if they're not going to, then they have to stop using it. They have to disconnect it from services, and if not, then we'll be proceeding with a stop order.
And do we work with the tenant or the landlord or both?
Both.
Okay.
When it comes to issuance of the stop order, it's both.
Okay.
We'll work with the tenant to get to that place.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Laura, you're just about done here, but here for another one. So, these aren't labeled. So, oh, sorry, 77.
Yeah.
This is my own writing. Page 77 in our package now. We're into renewal of the ISDAB.
Yeah, so the purpose of this report is for council to review the agreement between Big Lakes County, the town of High Prairie, the town of Swan Hills, and the town of Slave Lake, which establishes an intermunicipal subdivision development appeal board, and to decide if you wish to renew the agreement. I'm not going to go through that. So just as the following is a brief breakdown, I'm on page 78 of the report of the proposed changes to the ISDAB agreement. Membership. The ISDAB will consist of 12 members who shall be appointed to a list of members eligible to hear appeals for a term of 2 years. No change to the original agreement is being suggested with respect to membership. Quorum, in the original agreement, a quorum is reached when 5 members attend a hearing and only one of those members can be a counselor. And just for a note here, the MGA states that only one counselor may sit on a panel of the SDAB.
So for clarity, one counselor representing all the municipalities?
That's correct.
Okay.
Most participating municipalities are still having difficulty finding interested public members. And for most hearings held, it was difficult to secure a quorum. That said, at no point were we unable to secure a quorum, and no hearings were delayed as a result, but it was a little bit trickier. It was agreed after a discussion among the group that the agreement should be amended to reduce the size of the panel so that quorum of 3 members would consist, or would be a quorum, consisting of 2 members at large and 1 counselor. For the clerk, in the original agreement, each participating municipality would appoint 1 clerk who would coordinate appeal hearings and select the panel for each hearing. All participating municipalities are having trouble maintaining a trained clerk. So we're going to be appointing more clerks and using them or sharing that clerk's abilities in the event that a municipality doesn't have a trained clerk at any particular time. Town of Slave Lake is one of those that has very recently been in that exact same situation. So
Okay.
things happen, people leave organizations. So remuneration and honorarium, this was the big one. This was a big area of concern because in the original agreement, each participating municipality was responsible for remuneration and honorarium and travel expenses for their members and clerks. This was regardless of which municipality initiated the hearing. In 2019, the town of Slave Lake held 5 appeal hearings. Big Lakes County held 1, and the town of Swan Hills and the town of High Prairie held no hearings. Consequently, the town of Slave Lake benefited more than any other municipality because we held significantly more hearings. However, we only paid a small portion of the associated cost. As such, it was agreed that the municipality initiating the hearing would cover honorarium, travel, and meals for all panel members who would attend the hearing. Each municipality would remain responsible for training costs of all of their members and their clerks. Another area of concern was the inconsistency in the rates being paid by each participating municipality. The honorarium rates range from $160 a day to $350 a day. The rates for meals and mileage were fairly similar. This inconsistency in rates was also an area of concern for public members from the various municipalities because they were understanding what they were getting paid and what somebody else sitting on the ISDAB somewhere else was getting paid for honorarium. So we discussed that it is difficult to attract members for the ISDAB and due in large part to the initial and ongoing training required to be a member. There are some members who have concerns with the travel that's necessary to attend hearings, and finally, the inequity in the compensation paid for attending the meetings. So we also considered the time and personal commitment required to be a member, recognizing that attending a hearing could feasibly consume most of a member's day, and the honorarium did not always provide adequate compensation. As such, it was agreed that a rate schedule would be developed based on an average of the rates for each participating municipality. Schedule C of the new agreement provides the following. So honorarium of $198 for a hearing that's less than 4 hours, or $240 for a hearing that lasts more than 4 hours. Mileage at 54 cents a kilometer, and then you see the breakfast, lunch, and dinner compensations. So to give you an idea of what that means for the town, based on the proposed rate changes, the cost to the town based on 5 hearings held in a year. This example assumes 3 hearings were where the time to travel and attend the hearing would be less than 4 hours in total, and 2 would be more than 4. Mileage would be for travel to Slave Lake and as the initiating municipality, with 1 member traveling from High Prairie, 1 member traveling from Swan Hills and return for both, and 1 member from Slave Lake with no travel. This example also includes meals for all 3 members, lunch for all 5 hearings, and supper for 2. That would be for the 2 that extend later. And the chances of that, I think, are pretty remote, but this kind of gives you an outside cost. So A total of $27,9775 or $2,797 is likely a high estimate for the annual cost if we were to have 5 hearings initiated by the town of Slave Lake. Council should also keep in mind that we often attempt to get as many local SDA members as we can to attend the hearings, and that we typically do not need more than 1 non-local member to attend. So the numbers will likely be less. Currently, the town charges $300 for a development appeal and $400 for a subdivision appeal. Council could also consider a fee increase closer to $700, but I don't know that we want to go there either. Legal and meeting expenses. Each participating municipality is responsible for costs and expenses, including legal costs associated with a hearing if the hearing originated in their municipality. No change to the agreement is being suggested for this portion of the agreement. The term of the agreement is 5 years, and if approved, would be scheduled for consideration of renewal on March 1st, 2024. Just wanted to comment that this agreement has no additional review clause. The first one we reviewed after the first year. We're not proposing another review clause unless council would like us to consider it. Policies and procedures have not changed and are attached to Schedule Rules of conduct are attached to Schedule B, and there's been no change to those suggested. And the ISDA bylaw number 06219 is required and is in effect. No change to that bylaw is required to approve this new agreement. So just wanted to say that we didn't have any concerns with the amended ISDB agreement, and we recommend council approve it as presented. Questions?
Questions, comments from council? This one feels pretty straightforward. Council Busk.
The only question I had is we should be trying to break even with the costs of these meetings though. So if they are costing us $400 or $500, $600, the person requesting that special hearing should be covering those costs in my mind. So if we find going forward that the costs are outweighing the revenues received from having these meetings, we're going to have to come back and look at that. So if you keep track of that, that would be great. And with having said that, I would like to make the motion that council approves the intermunicipal subdivision and development appeal agreement as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Okay, big news of the night. Gordon Lundy's going to talk about our report on a new CAO.
So the purpose of the report is to appoint your successful candidate, as everyone has worked hard at getting this in place. David Kim has accepted the position as COO with the town of Slave Lake, comes from the city of Cranbrook, has worked as its city's CAO. Prior to his time in Cranbrook, he worked with the city of Calgary in urban development, holds a master certificate in municipal leadership, along with an engineering degree, both of which have prepared him to lead our local government. And David would be joining the town of Slave Lake on July the 6th. So it's presented before council to appoint Mr. David Kim to the position of CO effective July the 6th, 2020.
Okay. So a couple of things I would say to start out with. Yeah, council is very excited. We had a lengthy process for evaluating a CAO. So we did do a call out, went through approximately 40 applications. We had an extensive binder that all of council was involved in, and our admin to evaluate each one of those resumes. We shortlisted and had basically an interview process over the phone with a number of those applicants. We then went to a Zoom meeting where we basically did more of an in-face discussion with him, and it finally got down to a process where our last applicants physically came to the community. Council was able to meet with them in this room, actually in this very same format, because we're doing our social distancing. I get to tour them, the community, get to know them a little bit better. But part of it was for them to do a bit of a presentation on what they could bring to our organization. And so I will say that this process was quite extensive, and I appreciate all of council administration's time taking on that project. It is a big one. And a lot of definitely buy-in from our council to say, hey, it's important that we get this right. And so we're bringing in a person I'm excited about that, David comes from a city of 20-some thousand people with over 200 and some employees. He's got a strong background, as you mentioned, engineering, in planning and urban development, has managed projects, and has a passion and experience in economic development. And I think it's just going to be exactly what we need as our our guiding principles as we move forward. And our strategic plan is to focus on economic development. So I think it's a great fit. I'll also say that, I think it's a great opportunity to thank Mr. Lundy, who's in front of us. Gordon came to us after the fire during a recovery period to help us out during that transition in a very difficult and busy time in Slave Lake's history. Gordon managed that extremely well, was great to work with, and a mentor for our staff. And so we were pleasantly surprised that when we hit another issue and had to manage some transition, that he was here to throw on his cape and parachute in and help us out again. So I told him things were going really well in the organization, and we had a great team here, and that it would be an easy time to come in and transition while we found our new person. And then COVID hit. So we definitely have kept it interesting for him. And I pretty much lie every time. Part of the reason I ran when I got on council, because I thought it would be quiet and an easy term to get in, and the fire came 6 months later. So I think it's just a lie that I have to get out of my head, that there is no easy time with nothing going on. I also want to thank our directors who, we did have a bit of a period there that they had to, between our last retirement and Gordon coming to help us out. We're there to help, no questions asked. We'll do whatever it takes, and we throw a lot of stuff at them and a lot of logistics on top of their already busy schedules. Whether it's Roland trying to deal with year-end stuff and throwing stuff at them and saying, hey, well, I need a cell phone, I need an email address, I need you to look after this. What about the office? Lori says, no problem, I'll look after it. And just so council is aware, we do have a gap that Gordon will finish up on the 26th of June. David doesn't come until July 6th. And so Lori has agreed to help us out during that period again, get us through. And it just exciting to see some new vision and new leadership, but it's also exciting knowing that we have a really strong team and foundation here on the ground that does whatever it takes to get us through. So just want to say thanks to you, Gordon, for doing this, coming out of retirement again to help us out before we send you back to retirement. And for our team on the ground here that helps keep the boat afloat until we've got the new person in there. So excited to spend some time with David when he gets here, but also a little bit sad to see you leave, Gordon. So with that, anything else to add? If not, there's a motion here. I'm happy to read it out. I'll make a motion that council appoints David Kim, CAO of the town of Slave Lake, effective on his start date of July 6, 2020, pursuant to bylaw number 15, 2016, CA Chief Administrative Officer bylaw. Any discussion on that motion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. And so with that, we will jump into our agreement with Progress Unlimited. On page 98 in the package.
98.
Yeah. You going through this, Gordon? Or you want me to talk?
The agreement is presented for council to approve the economic development agreement with Progress Unlimited. It, as usual, it was the first, my first meeting was when council decided to proceed with this. And I think you have an excellent contractor. Since that time, we have been drafting a couple different versions back and forth between Lisa, myself, council. And so that has been completed. We received the Business Investment and Attraction Grant in the amount of $55,000 to contribute towards our costs. The administration has requested a time extension to Alberta Economic Development and Trade, and they have forwarded an agreement that I've signed and sent back and waiting for their reply that would comply with our agreement with Lisa to have this completed by December 31st, 2021. And she would have to file a report to the department by March the 1st of 22. And so that is fully in place for council to approve the agreement, or your other option is to ask for revisions to the contract and proceed there. So it's presented for council's decision as to proceeding with the agreement with Progress Unlimited.
Okay, questions, comments from council? As I see nothing, I'll interject here and say a couple of things. One, council did spend a bunch of time with Lisa last week going through this agreement in detail to make sure it was clearly understood what we were buying, what we're getting. I think one of the things that is great about this twofold. One, I keep talking about this, but I will continue, and you're going to hear this more as time goes on. Our council is very committed to economic development, to growth in our economy, to supporting businesses, to growing businesses, to supporting a growing industry and jobs. I think it's the lifeblood and the health of a community. And without that foundation, it is very hard to move forward. We need to be able to market our community, promote our community, and it's something that we're very passionate about. And so one of the things is that we dedicated a bunch of funds to make this happen. We wanted to bring in some people on the ground here to help guide us through that. And, Lisa's team is going to help us do that. What's even more fantastic is that we've got a grant there afterwards that we're going to offset some of the costs to taxpayers to help us do that. That was also a very interesting discussion behind the scenes here with council in regards to, is this something during this whole COVID thing going on, do we continue to do or do we park it? If we had all 7,000 of our residents in here right now, we'd have big issues. But the biggest one probably being is that there would be different opinion on whether or not we should be doing that. And I think at the end, what council decided was that, as we crawl out of COVID, whenever that may be, we recognize that more than ever, that supporting of that economy, that supporting of business, that supporting and promotion of our region up here is going to be more important than ever. And so that's not just something you roll out in a weekend. That's something that takes weeks and months of planning to do. And so council says, let's get to work behind the scenes. Maybe that gives us an advantage as we go forward, that we'll be in a better position than some other communities that haven't done that did decide to stall. And so I actually am extremely excited to get going on this. I'll echo too that there's a formation of how we kind of do this as a group as we move forward. Is it a couple of councillors that work on it? Is it members of the public? Where do we end up? We definitely see the need for collaboration. We need to work with our industry and our partners and our Chamber of Commerce and Community Futures and the organizations that exist within the community. But when it came down to a discussion about, one or two or councillors or a couple of them, a group, it was decided that it was something that we all were extremely passionate about and we all want to be involved in. So I think that's great because I look forward to the feedback and the different perspectives. And I think this is going to be an extremely exciting project and probably one of the most important things we do with this council. So with that, Councillor Brandel.
I will make the motion that council accept and approve the agreement with Progress Unlimited, Inc. for the BIA initiative and the economic development deliverables as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, municipal asset management program.
So the purpose of this report presented, Gary put it together, is to approve an application for the MAP program through the FCM. He has been in touch with officials of the FCM, and even though it's not guaranteed, is a possibility that we would be able to qualify for a grant up to the 90% maximum, up to a maximum of $50,000, which would greatly assist us in carrying out the first step in this overall program. So we are presenting it to council to allow administration to proceed with the application and to cover off the previous resolution that council made, and that we commit to funding of in the 220 capital budget. So it's presented for council's decision.
Okay. So some background, obviously our council and administration, a lot of times, especially during budget, in order to make good budgetary decisions and fiscal decisions as we move forward, is to have a good idea of the life expectancy of the equipment and the buildings and the things that we have. And so managing those assets and their individual pieces of equipment, the input costs and on life expectancy obviously aids us in doing that. And so we've had some discussions behind the scenes about making sure that we are doing that. And for a number of years we have been, but that process could be refined and it could be stronger and better and a little bit more unified across the spectrum of all our departments to get some consistency. And so similar to the economic development discussion that we talked about just previously, there's an opportunity to apply and offset some of the costs that we intend to spend anyway. So I kind of see this one as a no-brainer as well. Councillor King.
I'll make a motion that council directs administration to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for Asset Essentials, and that the town of Slave Lake commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program: software implementation, facility condition assessment, and work order management and preventative maintenance schedule, and that the town of Slave Lake commits funding from its 2020 capital budget moving forward towards the remaining costs of this initiative up to $58,900.
Any discussion from council? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so far you've been Gordon, you've been Gary, and now you're going to be the fire chief. Is that correct?
Alex is going out of town for the next couple of days, so he asked me to present his report. And it's another good news story. Is to inform council of the funding that's been received for the purchase of a new rescue boat, and is presented for information purposes only. The Lesser Slave Regional Fire Service Water Rescue Operation has been working towards replacing the current boat. Last year, the fire service applied for a grant from the Rotary and for purchasing a new boat, but was unsuccessful. Recently, they've been talking to the Wide Water Athletic Association and with an offer which they made to donate funds towards the purchase of the watercraft in the amount of $75,000. The society has the balance of the funds to essentially purchase a new rescue boat through their fundraising efforts in the past. And so the boat will be used by the Water Rescue Program, which will continue to operate with volunteers and full-time fire service staff, and it may be utilized with enforcement services for training, operations, and protective services. The Wabasca Fire Department have expressed interest in our existing boat, and so the MD of Lesser Slave River has committed to covering the cost of registration and insurance of new craft. The only expenditures we foresee will be the regular maintenance and upkeep, the costs we have with the current craft as well, but predict that will be notably less with a new boat for the next few years. And so as stated earlier, it's 100% community funded and no resource impacts are expected. And so it's presented for council's information.
Okay, questions, comments from council? I talked to Harry Bartlett this evening and thanked him profusely for their generous donation from Whitewater Athletic for $75,000. The water rescue program was something that included a boat. I was largely driven by the MD just before the fire, and after the fire, through some funds that they had, they committed to bringing in a boat. And so, you know, over the last couple of years, because that thing is aging out, it wasn't new to begin with. There's some discussion about, is that something that we're going to continue to fund or what we're going to do? Because it comes with some costs and significant ones, as you can see. Luckily, we don't have to have that debate amongst ourselves about whether we can do it or not, because once again, the community that is great in Slave Lake has risen to the occasion, and the firefighters who have literally raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to deliver the service that is sometimes questioned by the public, have done it yet again. So thanks, big, huge thank you to Whitewater Athletic. Big thanks to the Firefighter Society, who continues to help and spearhead and search for that money. But this is a huge win-win for all of us. And operationally, it's something that we already have in operation, so there literally is no budget impact. Any comments? Motion? Councillor Busk? Councillor Busk's mic is off, but he makes a motion to accept as information. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's Corner. What's going on, Mayor's Corner? Okay, so last couple of weeks has been busy. We didn't have a meeting last week, but organizing things with our new CAO and lining up coverage there in between has taken a little bit of time. I was really excited to spend a couple hours with Lisa Broldy, who's part of our economic development team last week, and start talking about that project and understanding some of the timelines. Was definitely a highlight for sure. MLA, so some different things there. Obviously, I mentioned earlier there, but working with the MLA to better understand if there is some potential grant opportunities to basically pursue some capital projects. You know, is one I'm really excited to see. Is that something that there is going to be some stimulus funding or not? So hopefully we hear some announcements on that before it's too late to actually accomplish any of those in 2020. I've been working with the MLA's office too to you know, continue to advocate for a couple of projects. Largely all of these actually provincial projects, are not even municipal ones, but would definitely benefit our region. Our ambulance bay continues to be a sore point for both of our councils, and some renewed interest from the MLA to go push for that. They had some conversations with the health ministry, who's going to dig into it a little bit deeper. So I look forward to some feedback on that one. Additionally, we've had some frustration moving along one of our housing projects that we're advocating for here since after the fire. Councillor Brandel is the chair of the Housing Authority and the lead on that one. It definitely feels like a vehicle stuck in the mud with some clay on the tires and just kind of go round and round. And so we are unable to meet with the minister, but our MLA is doing that. We're both excited to have a conversation with him next week to get him up to speed on where things are at and impress upon him the importance of that project for our community. So we'll see where all of those things go. You know, one thing I will say with all this COVID stuff going on, you know, there had a lot of communication out when I started, and it comes a lot from that anxiety levels in the community. It comes a lot from questions. It comes a lot from question marks. It's been fairly quiet the last few weeks. I think residents have really adopted to this current normal that's ever changing. The government keeps throwing stuff at us, changing their mind on different things, understanding what phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 means, are constant questions. And so obviously we have our own facilities that fit into that, but many of us are also business people. And so we're feeling where we fit into those things. Customers excited to get their hair done again, to eat in a restaurant, and things go on. And sometimes I look out in the public and I think, my gosh, do these people even know that COVID is going on when there's soccer games and baseball games going on in parks, and sometimes social distancing isn't where it's at. I get it. 100% I get it. There is that balance of risk versus, you know, life goes on. And so that level of risk versus life goes on is different for everyone. And so that's why we see such different approaches, I think, out there in the community. You know, one thing that I take solace in is the fact that our numbers in Northern Alberta are quite low, and in Slave Lake, they seem to be non-existent for several weeks. Hopefully that trend continues. It is no doubt that at some point, we will see COVID in our community again, and at that time, depending on those numbers, you know, that is going to change the conversation in this room. It's going to change the conversation in everybody's room. It's going to change the conversation in those businesses. So there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows, I think, as we move forward in the world to figure out what it is. I'm excited to be back in this room again. I enjoy seeing people. I am actually a people person. And so, you know, seeing my customers in my business again, seeing my staff again, putting my people back to work, getting to see you guys instead of in a Zoom meeting. Some of you would just not even look at me, you just block that out. And I got tired of looking at a black screen. So I'm excited for this stuff. But yeah, if I've eased off on communication, it's because I'm not getting asked a lot of questions. So to the public that's out there, if there's something I'm missing or something you want to know about, feel free to reach out. But I don't do videos just to hear myself talk, contrary to what council thinks. So we'll see what happens as we go there. I'm excited to hear that grads have something planned. I'm doing, there's a kind of a video thing that they've put together for Catholic school. And so I'm going to do some stuff with them tomorrow. I hear Councillor McGregor is involved in a parade for the Royal Michener graduates there at the end of the month. I think it's 27th or 28th. I'll be interested for feedback from you, what you'd love to see from us for that. And we'll see where that goes. But, you know, obviously, you know, a tough year for those grads. That's kind of your send off at the end of the year. So encourage the council or the community, as for some of those parades and those things that are going on, to be part of that. Show those guys that, you know, they worked hard. It's a big milestone in everyone's life. We shouldn't devalue it just because the current situation. So with that, I don't have much else. That's what's going on in our world. So we have some correspondence, some stuff in regards to municipal affairs. Sent us a letter on page 120 in our package, as well as one in regards to highways. The first one for municipal affairs talks about our allocations for operating in our capital. MSI basically is the grants that we get from the provincial government. We rely on to do a lot of our capital projects. So this formalized to, you know, basically formalizing the stuff that we already know. So there's no big eye-opening thing here for council. Obviously, we got another letter here from Highways and Transportation in regards to the investment that they're doing in our area. And so we did put this out, and we had some communication about this as well, but came to our package. I think a lot of people think all the highways are going to get fixed this year, but some of it is just engineering, and we'll see it, actually the construction phase of it, come in 2021. So the province has been slick about their communication and saying that we're making these big announcements into investment in roads and highways that will be completed by the end of construction season in 2021. But I also recognize there's engineering things that has to go on and there is a process. And so I think we'll feel some bumps along the way for a little while yet. With that, we've got some in-camera stuff to talk about here in regards to some personnel. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go in camera. Councillor Ferguson makes a motion to go in camera. Any questions? Call the question. Those in favor, sorry. We are in camera.